All right, let's dive right into this explainer. We're going on an epic, top-to-bottom journey across one of the most geographically diverse countries on Earth. We are talking about a landmass that hosts practically every major geographical feature you can possibly think of, from freezing, towering mountain peaks to scorching, sandy deserts, from ancient, rocky plateaus to vibrant, living coral islands. It's literally a place where geography doesn't just sit in the background. It actively shapes the climate, the culture, and the daily lives of over 1 billion people.
Think of this as our travel itinerary. First, we're defining incredible India. Then, we'll summit the Himalayan crown. Drop down into the plains and desert, explore the peninsular plateau, and finally wrap up with the coasts and coral islands. Ready? Let's go.
Okay, Section 1, Defining Incredible India.
First off, we're talking about a staggering 3.28 million square kilometers. To put that into perspective, that is a sprawling, massive chunk of land that absolutely dominates South Asia. You've got 3,200 kilometers stretching from the freezing, snowy peaks of Kashmir in the north all the way down to the tropical tip of Kanyakumari in the south. And going east to west, that's another giant leap, 2,900 kilometers from Arunachal Pradesh straight over to Kutch.
And of course, a massive landmass like this houses an equally massive population. We're talking over 1.2 billion people, or 120 crore, recorded back in the 2011 census. That makes it the second most populous country on Earth, right behind China. So as we go through all these extreme landscapes, just remember this. Every single mountain valley, river plain, and coastline is teeming with life and deeply intertwined with human civilization.
Now, if we pinpoint exactly where this giant sits on the globe, you'll see this vast expanse is split right down the middle by the Tropic of Cancer. Passing through at 23 degrees and 30 minutes north, this invisible line basically slices the country into two totally different climate zones. You get a more temperate subtropical north and a purely tropical south. Actually, this single line of latitude is a huge reason why the vibe and vegetation shifts so dramatically from top to bottom.
But here's the thing, India doesn't exist in a bubble. It shares land borders with 7 different nations: Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, Bhutan, Myanmar, Nepal, and Bangladesh. It's like a giant puzzle piece connected to all these neighbors. And it doesn't stop there. Looking south across the water, India connects to island neighbors too. Sri Lanka is just a stone's throw away across the narrow Palk Strait and Gulf of Mannar. And you've got the Maldives sitting right below the Lakshadweep Islands. India really is a central geographic hub.
All right, moving on to Section 2, the Himalayan crown. The name alone paints quite a picture, doesn't it? Hima literally means snow, and Alaya means abode, so the abode of snow. These aren't just your average hills. They are a formidable, year-round frozen fortress at the top of the subcontinent. They act like a giant natural wall, completely blocking those freezing winds from Central Asia and literally driving the region's intense monsoon weather patterns.
Geographically, this mountain system is basically a giant staircase stepping down to the south in 3 parallel layers. Right at the very top is the Great Himalaya, or Himadri. This is the big leagues, guys, home to absolute titans like Mount Everest and Kanchenjunga. Take one step down and you hit the middle Himalaya, the Himachal, which is where you'll find those gorgeous hill stations like Shimla and Manali. Finally, step down one more time to the Shivalik Range. Because it's the southernmost and geologically the youngest, it's actually the weakest range. Honestly, it's pretty notorious for frequent landslides and earthquakes.
Next up, Section 3, Plains and Desert.
Talk about a massive geographical whiplash. You have the life-giving, super dense river plains sitting right next door to a baking, empty desert. The northern plains are incredibly flat with this insanely fertile alluvial soil. Why? Well, because massive rivers like the Indus, the Ganga, and the Brahmaputra rush down from the Himalayas carrying all that rich, fine soil and dumping it right here. It's an absolute agricultural powerhouse, which is why so many people live there. But then pan over to the northwest and boom, you hit the Great Indian Desert. It's bone dry, scorching hot, sandy, and gets barely any rain. The vegetation is almost zero. It is wild to think these two extremes exist right next to each other.
Okay, let's keep heading south. Section 4, the Peninsular Plateau.
To really get why the southern half of India looks the way it does, we have to talk about peninsulas. A peninsula is a landmass surrounded by water on 3 distinct sides. For India, you've got the Arabian Sea to the southwest, the Bay of Bengal to the southeast, and the massive Indian Ocean directly at the bottom. This unique, tapered shape gives India an insanely long coastline, which is an absolute game-changer for its trade, its climate, and its global maritime influence.
Now, this triangular plateau is wildly uneven. It's bordered on the northwest by the Aravalli Hills, which, by the way, are some of the oldest mountains on the entire planet. The plateau itself is all textured with the Vindhya and Satpura ranges. Now, here's a fun piece of geographic trivia for you. Pay attention to the water flow. The Narmada and Tapi rivers flow out to the west, emptying into the Arabian Sea. But pretty much every other major river, the Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, and Kaveri, they all flow east, draining into the Bay of Bengal. And when those east-flowing rivers finally hit the ocean, they slow down and drop all their sediment, creating massive, fertile deltas, including the world-famous Sundarban Delta shared by the Ganga and Brahmaputra.
And guarding the edges of this giant plateau are the Ghats. The Western Ghats, also known as the Sahyadris, form this steep, almost unbroken wall along the west edge. But the Eastern Ghats, they are completely broken and uneven. Why? Because those powerful east-flowing rivers we just talked about have literally chewed massive holes right through them as they forcefully carve their way toward the sea.
Finally, Section 5, Coasts and Coral Islands. So, that massive movement of rivers directly shapes the coastlines down below. Over on the west, squeezed between the continuous Western Ghats and the Arabian Sea, the coastal plains are super narrow strips of land. But on the east, because those rivers burst through the Ghats and just keep dumping tons of sand and silt at their mouths, the eastern coastal plains are way, way broader. It's literally a case of geography building new land right in front of us over thousands of years.
To finish up our grand tour, we're heading offshore to two completely distinct island groups. Down in the southeast, floating out in the Bay of Bengal, you've got the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Then, over in the southwest, chilling in the Arabian Sea right off the coast of Kerala, are the Lakshadweep Islands. But here's the kicker. The Lakshadweep aren't just normal chunks of rock. They have a very unique, living origin. It is absolutely mind-blowing, but the entire foundation of the Lakshadweep Islands is built from the skeletons of tiny marine animals called polyps. These are entirely coral islands. Basically, these tiny creatures live, thrive, and eventually die, leaving their hard, chalky skeletons behind. Then new, living polyps grow right on top of the old ones. Layer by layer, over thousands and thousands of years, this structure builds up until it breaks the ocean surface and becomes an island. It is a landform literally built by marine biology. How cool is that? As we wrap up this explainer on India's breathtaking geography, I want to leave you with a quick, stark reminder. The Earth isn't just some static painting. It's a dynamic, moving, and sometimes completely destructive machine. Think about the devastating 2004 tsunami. It dramatically altered the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, shifting coastlines and changing the map overnight. Our planet is constantly rewriting its own geography. So, what other massive forces are quietly reshaping the world beneath our feet right now? Think on that, and I'll catch you next time as we keep unpacking the fascinating world around us.